Hello and welcome back to another lesson. So today I want to do something a little different. And what I mean by that is today I want to take a look at a particular news article that I am hoping might be relevant and helpful to you and maybe even me. And I just want to cover it and then let us just take a look at it and just kind of go over it and just have some thoughts. Okay, so the title of this particular article is Eight Bad Habits That Ruin Good Presentations. Even the best presentation can flop if you indulge in any of these common but avoidable habits. Okay, super interesting title, so let's check it out. And this article was published by Jeffrey James on the website inc.com. If you want to check it out, that's the information. Okay, with that being said, let's take a look at it together. Okay, I'm too lazy to read the introduction, so let me just dive into the main eight habits. Okay, number one bad habit is starting with an apology. The bad habit: you're late, your equipment malfunctions, you don't have your materials, or whatever. You apologize in advance for how this might affect your presentation. Why it's a mistake. An apology sets a negative tone that may affect the entire meeting and makes you seem like a victim. Nobody wants to do business with a victim. What to do instead? Start on an upbeat note, as if nothing is wrong. This communicates that you're cool under pressure, the opposite of being a victim. So, when it comes to this particular bad habit, I completely agree. And I also understand that a lot of people have a tendency to apologize, not only in the beginning of their speech, but throughout. Throughout maybe throughout the entirety of this speech. A lot of high performers that I notice, a lot of my A students, a lot of students who are perfectionists or just individuals who are perfectionists, they have a tendency to apologize, even for the most minute mistakes. They might trip over the words or they might forget a specific word that they wanted to say, and then they apologize and then they try to repeat what they originally wanted to say. Now, here's the thing with presentations. Sure, it's very kind of you and very sweet of you to apologize because when you're in the real world, just kind of like when you bump into someone or you make a mistake, sure, it's polite and expected that you apologize. Now, when it comes to presentations, the situation is completely different. All eyes are on you. The audience is expecting something. They are expecting something from beginning to end. Sure, you can make mistakes as long as you don't acknowledge it. It's kind of, again, like watching a movie or watching a play. In the middle of the movie, you don't have the actor randomly apologizing to the audience, or when you're watching a musical or your live theater, you don't have the performers apologizing when they trip over something or when they missay something. No, they don't acknowledge their mistake, but instead they move forward. Because, again, as an audience member, you have to really take into account the actual speaking context, right, of presentations. Public speaking and presentations or just delivering speeches is very much similar setting to a performance, a live performance, right? You have an audience, they are there to watch something, and hopefully that audience is entertained, enlightened, persuaded, whatever, right? Now your goal as the presenter is to kind of entertain, right? And when I say entertain, I don't mean just to make them laugh or whatever. It's to provide some form of thought provoking information or to persuade them or to do something. But the audience just simply wants to sit there and relax and just enjoy the show, as you would say. We don't want to hear apologies. And I get it with this article's trying to say nobody wants to work with the victim, fair, but it's one of those things, it's just there's no need to apologize for a minor mistake, especially in the context of public speaking. Again, this is not, you're not out on the street, you didn't just bump into someone. That is a different context. That's a different communication context and situation. When it comes to presentations, minimize your mistakes or minimize being apologetic, because again, it's not about apologizing for the little mistakes. It's expected almost that you don't apologize, because remember, presentations are different. It's like a live performance. And think about it, when you watch a musical or live performers, they don't apologize for their mistakes when they're in the moment. You might have the MC come in and apologize for technical difficulties or whatever, or if something's really a big thing, then sure, you can apologize for it. But in reality, as the person who's giving presentations, if you can not apologize, perfect. Just move on. If there are disagreements or there are mistakes, don't bring attention to them. It's okay. It is okay. So number one, yes, I definitely totally agree. Um, Apologies does ruin a good presentation because it makes us feel bad. And as again, as an audience member, we don't want to see a train wreck. We don't want to see someone on stage that lacks confidence. So avoid apologies. Just keep going. Move on. If there is a mistake, move forward, make up for it, but don't go back and retract and try to erase what happened. Just move forward, get us out of that moment, and let's keep, again, moving forward. Wonderful. So, moving forward to number 2, asking for extra time. The bad habit. You feel you don't have sufficient time to communicate your important information, so you request extra time to communicate it. Why it's a mistake. If there's less time because you're late, you're adding injury to insult. If it's because your presentation is too long, well, your presentation is too long. What to do instead? Adapt your presentation down so that it fits the allotted time. If you're late, end your presentation when it's scheduled to end. So, I think this one is extremely valuable because here's the important rule. Time is valuable, and none of us want our time to be wasted. And the same can be applied to presentations. And when I teach my students, I always give them this example. Let's say I am lecturing on a class. As a student, would you prefer if I or how would you feel if I lectured more than our scheduled time? Obviously, as a student, you'd probably be pretty pissed or upset with me, right? The majority of students would be disappointed or upset. Why? Because there are a multitude of variables. Number one, maybe students are expecting, okay, this is going to be a 1 hour 30-minute class. It should be scheduled and it should be done in that specific time. Or maybe students are trying to, go to a different class. They have a class right after mine, and obviously, if I'm running over our scheduled time limit, students need to take in consideration travel time. So maybe they aren't able to get to their next class on time because of me. Now, on the contrary, what if I end class 10 minutes earlier than our scheduled time? The majority of students would have no problem with it. If anything, they probably prefer that. But obviously, within that same time constraint, let's say, even though I lecture 10 minutes less than our scheduled time, but you still left with valuable information and you learned a lot that particular day, wouldn't you love it? Wouldn't you want every class to be like that? Now more than ever, we want information consumed and absorbed as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Because how much time is 10 minutes? What can you do in 10 minutes saved? You can do a lot. You can go to the restroom, you can grab a quick snack, you can relax your brain for the next assignment. We don't want our 10 minutes, even 1 minute wasted. Now, when it comes to your presentation, this does happen to a lot of individuals who are not prepared. They try to present a speech or presentation to perfectly end on the dot, right? Let's say your presentation is supposed to be 1 hour. A lot of students, or a lot of people, excuse me, they try to prepare a 1 hour lecture from beginning to end, and they are very they have every minute scheduled perfectly. 10 minutes for this, 10 minutes for that, 15 minutes for this, 20 minutes for that, etc., etc. But the problem with that is that things don't go always perfectly and according to plan. So how do you adapt? Now, a lot of people are unable to adapt on a whim. So because they planned this 1 hour lecture perfectly, even though, let's say, you started 10 minutes late, a lot of people are really stuck in their inability to adapt and shave off 10 minutes. Because again, what's more important is focusing on the end time and re- not going over the allotted time. So, one thing I always suggest people is always prepare fully for your presentation, but always allow room for mistakes. For example, if you're giving a 60-minute presentation, allow 5 to 10 minutes of just error or like breathing room just in case something goes wrong or just in case you want to add a new thought or idea. Let's say in the introduction of your speech, you're really engaged with your audience and you're really feeling them and they're really feeling you, and you just kind of want to just keep the energy going. Maybe you want to throw out some more jokes, whatever it may be. The reason why you want to allow those 15 or 5 to 10 minutes of breathing time is so you can do that, right? Because that's actually planned into your presentation. You allow 5 to 10 minutes of breathing room for mistakes, for moments to kind of really milk specific moments, to really allow the audience to be engaged in what you're saying, or if you want to expand an idea or whatever it may be. So always leave room for time in your speech, but never go over. Why? Because no one wants our time wasted. So don't go over the expected time limit. Again, always prepare for your presentation to end earlier than the expected time. Even if it's a minute, it is way better to end earlier than it is to end later. Now, to the third tip, which is, or the third thing to avoid, the bad habit, which is shooting slide barrages. The bad habit. I have 15 minutes left and I'm through only 20 of my 58 PowerPoint slides. So I'm going to be going through this last bit a little fast. Why it's a mistake. This usually happens when initial slides spark discussion, so you lay a guilt trip on your audience members to keep them quiet while you finish up. What to do instead? Adapt the remainder of your presentation so that it addresses what was discussed, because that's clearly what's important to your audience. I agree. Do not make up for lost time. Do not try to compensate for time that has passed. Focus on what you have said. Make sure your audience understand and has absorbed what you have said, and adapt. It's always about adapting. Presentations, speeches, it's not about always perfectly doing what is planned, because there are variables out of your control. Because again, let's say an audience member, your boss, or whomever comes into the meeting 10 minutes later and you have this perfectly planned presentation slides and everything is valuable. Yeah, that's great and that's important, but the reality is that, again, there's so much out of your control. What's most important is how do you adapt. So maybe, let's say, the slides that you didn't go over and you want to give over, instead of just discussing them in the presentation, you can maybe email them a deliverable so they can still get that information, but not have to sit through your presentation, because obviously, you don't want to go over time. You never want to make people feel like you're wasting their time, right? The goal of a presentation or just communication is getting your message across. And if your message doesn't require you always to give a presentation, find out a different way to communicate your ideas. Again, a simple email where you attach your presentation slides and the data and the research that you found to the people in the audience member. Would that work? Probably. So find out different methods that you can still get the information across, right? Wonderful. So moving forward, number 4, making personal excuses. The bad habit. You downgrade the audience's expectations by offering an excuse in advance for your poor performance. E.g., I'm so tired, or I got in late last night. Why it's a mistake. You're giving yourself an excuse so you won't feel so bad if you fail. Plus, nobody wants to hear you whine about your problems. What to do instead? Regardless of how you're feeling, show enthusiasm for being there and make your best effort. I completely agree, excuse me. So, the reality is no one really cares the excuses that you have, especially in that particular moment, right? You can save your excuses for later. What's important right now in front of your audience is you doing a fucking really damn good job from beginning to end. Near perfect execution as possible. If you have a 30-minute meeting and the meeting is focused on figuring out what is the plan for the next month, the itinerary, our goals, weekly goals, monthly goal objectives, whatever it may be. We just want to hear that, right? And if you talk about, oh, sorry if my voice is hurting, I was sick, like, okay, but we don't need to hear that. That's information that reality is that most audience members don't really care about. If your voice is hurting, fine. We'll think about it in our head, but at the end of the day, it's like we don't care. Because you need to think about the purpose of that communication situation. The purpose of your presentation for me as an audience member is I want to figure out why the fuck I'm here. What do I need to hear? What is important for me to hear that you set up this day and time where I have to spend 30 minutes listening to you? And for sure, it's not your excuses. So as harsh as it may sound, I completely agree. You can save your excuses for later. Because the reality is, the way I see presentations is very similar to playing a competitive sport. And I say that, and I use that comparison because I used to do public speaking competitively. The reality is, if my voice was shot, if my throat was hurting, if I had a stomach ache, if I had to throw up, whatever it may be, the audience and my judge, they do not care. If anything, they'll use that as an excuse to let me lose that round. And that could be the same reasoning why someone might fire you, because you're constantly giving excuses. So don't give excuses. You don't need to preface your presentation with, oh, sorry if my eyes look a little tired or my throat's hurting. Like, it doesn't matter. We don't care about that. The audience wants to sit there, listen to whatever needs to be said, and move forward. We don't want our time being wasted. And the reality is that most of your coworkers, they're probably not that close of your friend, right? Maybe they are, and that's great. But the reality is that even if they are your close friends, we can hear the excuses some other time, but not during the presentation. The speech or the presentation is focused on a specific goal. Now, obviously, the goal depends on whatever the meeting is or whatever objective you have, but that's what we need to hear, not the excuses. So, I completely agree with this particular tip. Don't make excuses, because the reality is that 80 to 90 or 99% of your audience, they don't care about the excuses. A lot of people, if it's in your typical meeting or your typical presentation, most people don't even want to be at that presentation. Most people would actually probably prefer just, like an email or something so they can just read it on their own time. Because again, we live in a generation where our time is so valuable. We don't want you to waste it. And the same thing with this podcast or my lessons. If at any point you feel like you're not getting information that's valuable, you're going to tune me out. And that's totally understandable. And the same thing can be said with your presentation. So do not make excuses. Unless it's at the end of your presentation, but not during the presentation itself. Focus on the objectives. Okay. Moving forward. Number 5. Reading from your slides. The bad habit. Your slides reflect your thinking on a subject, so you read your slides aloud to the audience in order to replicate your thought process. Why it's a mistake. Presumably, everyone in your audience can read, so you're not just being boring, you're insulting them. What to do instead? Use slides as visual signposts for the points you're making rather than a written version or summary of those points. So, completely agree. And speaking from the speaker's perspective, when you're making your presentation, you have to avoid writing full complete sentences or summaries. Now, why is that important? Because because the moment you start writing like a slide with heavy notes and heavy text, you're going to rely on those slides, and you're using those slides as a crutch. Why? Because you put so much effort into writing your slides or writing what you want to say in your slides. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to rely on what you worked on, which are your slides. And the reality is that I tell this to all my students or the people I'm working with or I'm coaching, is that if I can understand your presentation by just looking at your slides, you as a presenter serves no purpose. Like, I don't even need to hear from you. Why should I hear from you? Why should I even pay attention during your presentation when I can just read your slides? Why don't you just email me your slides and we can just save everybody time? I can get you out of your misery and you can save me a lot more time. Because that's the reality. Wouldn't you do the same thing? If you sat in the audience and you saw a presentation where it was just super text heavy, literally the presenter were just speaking word for word from the slide, wouldn't you just be like, yo, why don't you just email me your presentation? Like, what's the point of me sitting here? Because again, we are so prone to, in this fast moving world where we don't want a second of our time wasted, because that second could be spent on a TikTok video or, just looking through photos or whatever. We all love our time. We all love saving time because there's so much to do. We're all so fast paced nowadays because of the internet. And when it comes to consumption. So, same thing with your presentation slides. Don't write your slides with so much text. Don't make it so text heavy. Because again, if your presentation can be understood by just reading your slides, then you've done a poor job with your presentation slides. Because again, why the hell would I sit and listen to you when I can just read your slides and just ignore you? Because I can read quicker than I can listen to you, right? So definitely agree with those slides. Be mindful. Don't use your slides as a crutch. And you shouldn't be investing so much damn time into your presentation slides. If you invest more time into your slides than actually practicing what you're going to say, then you're probably setting yourself up for failure. Because again, if you're going to invest so much time into the graphics and text of your slides, you're going to just be reading it and you're just going to be relying on technology to do your job for you, when that's not what presentations are. Presentations and speeches aren't about you letting technology do our job for us. That's what emails are for. That's what PDFs are for. It's better to communicate that topic through email and slides than through in-person verbal communication. So be mindful of your slides. Keep it simple. Keep it easy. Don't be too crazy with the text. Just use them as notes, and then it'll help you move forward. Okay, moving forward. Number 6, another bad habit. Turning your back. The bad habit. You keep turning around to read from your slides or staring down to read from your notes. Why it's a mistake. You're compounding the mistake of reading by being rude and unprofessional. What to do instead? Face your audience members and look at them while you're presenting. If necessary, take a quick glance, but keep your focus on where it belongs, them. So completely agree. This happens so much with a lot of people I work on. Because again, it goes back to individuals focusing so much time and energy into their presentation slides when, again, if you're letting technology do your job for you, you shouldn't be giving a presentation. You know the saying, like, where, how technology is kind of like replacing a lot of jobs? Now, that might be your own detriment. If you're creating these beautiful PowerPoints where I can understand everything from your presentation by just reading the slides or watching them, then you as the individual, as the speaker, serves no purpose in that particular moment. Why should I waste my time listening to you when I can just look at your awesome slides? Right? So again, you need to understand, slides is one of the presenter's biggest crutch, because you rely on it so much because you spend so much time. You're depending on those slides to get you through that presentation, which is the wrong approach technology shouldn't replace you. You should leverage technology to help you in your presentation. How? Use your slides as notes. Use your slides as visual cues to help you move forward and help the audience understand what you're trying to say that much better. But at the end of the day, you are the speaker. You are the medium to get the message across. Technology shouldn't do that, or it's going to replace you. Now, when it goes back to the bad habit of turning your back, how do you fix that? Obviously, you face forward, but it goes back to your slides. Don't make a slide or presentation aids that will make you feel more, that will make you want to just rely on them. Again, using your slides is a crutch. But a rule of thumb is when you're facing your audience, you want to plant your feet and have the tip of your toes pointed towards the center of the audience. And obviously you want to plant your feet, nice firm stance, point your feet towards the center audience, and then don't move, plant your feet, because that kind of forces your body to be open to the entire audience. So that's a quick little tip. But yes, don't turn your back. You face it's literally like turning your back towards someone, and no one likes that, right? So be mindful of that particular problem. Now, number 7, another bad tip, which is talking too fast. The bad habit. You've got a lot of material to cover, so you talk fast to get through all of it. Why? It's a mistake. If you need to talk fast, your presentation is too long. Plus, fast talking makes you sound either nervous or like a stereotypical fast talking salesperson. What to do instead? Cut your presentation down so fast talk isn't necessary. If you're talking fast because you're nervous, write slow down on each page of your notes. So definitely one of the bigger issues that a lot of people have, which is just speed reading or just speed talking. And from my experience, most of my students have the tendency to speed read or, speed present their presentation is because they want that experience to be over with as quickly as possible. And I'm pretty sure, a lot of introverted high performers know exactly what I'm talking about, and you can relate. Is that you want to speak fast, you want to speak faster, so this scary experience is over with. So you can move on and feel a lot more comfortable and confident. But again, that's very selfish of a presenter. Because think about it. If you're speed reading or speed talking because you want this scary experience to be over with, you're wasting your entire audience's time. Because your presentation, if I don't understand it because you're just talking so fast, what's the purpose of you even giving a presentation? Right? So at the end of the day, focus on the audience. It's about the audience. That's what presentations are. And I understand that a lot of people get nervous, but the reality is to help you overcome these bad habits, you need to understand the audience isn't scary. Sure, there can be pressure. Sure, you can be nervous, but anything that's important makes you nervous, has pressure. That's just the reality of it. And if you listen to my past lectures, you'll understand that nervousness is not something to be avoided. What's more important is learning how to control it. How do you control your anxiety? How do you control and react better under pressure? That's just life. That's not just a presentation skill. That's a life skill. How do you perform better under pressure during nerve-wracking situations? And the great thing about public speaking and giving presentations is that you can train yourself to kind of relax, calm yourself down, and be in control despite being nervous. You need to slow down at the beginning of your presentation. The first line of your presentation or speech needs to be slow and controlled, and maintain that pace throughout. And that's how you do it. But there's obviously more tips and tricks and stuff like that. But y'all get it. Avoid talking too fast. It definitely is a bad habit. Because again, let's say you devoted so much valuable time in your presentation, slides are on point, you wrote out your speech word for word, everything's perfect, and then all of a sudden the execution is just too fast and rushed. You wasted a great presentation, simply put. And you deserve better than that. So don't waste your hard efforts. Keep it slow, keep it controlled. Just talk to the audience. Share with them what you prepared. Share with them the great information that you have. Are you trying to persuade them? Whatever it may be. Just have a conversation with them. Keep it simple. Okay. So the last bad habit that ruins good presentations, which is fidgeting. The bad habit. You keep fiddling with your papers, fingering your jewelry, that's an interesting phrasing, scratching yourself, etc. Why it's a mistake. Anything that distracts your audience from your message is making that message less effective. What to do instead? As you rehearse your presentation, rehearse how you'll stand and where you'll put your hands. Rehearse enough and your tics will disappear. So this is very common habit that a lot of nervous speakers have. They have a tendency to fidget. But one thing I've also noticed with a lot of individuals when it comes to fidgeting is that they have a tendency to play with their clothing a lot. Now, if let's say you're in a workplace that has very casual attire where you can wear, casual clothes. One thing I noticed with a lot of individuals is when they're wearing casual clothes is they have a tendency to also put their hands in their hoodies. Like those kangaroo pockets? They'll put their hands in their hoodies. They'll put their hands in their pockets. They'll sway side to side. I get those all the time, right? Just nonverbal habits that just obviously indicate that you're nervous and that you're distracted from the audience, or that you're scared about how the audience will perceive you. There are some individuals who lean against the wall. There's a lot. I don't want to list all of them. Now, how do you practice? All right, obviously this particular article said rehearse, yeah, but what should you rehearse? So let me give you some better information. So this is what you should do if you don't know what to do with your body, but you have the tendency to fidget. When you're standing and just giving a presentation, put your hands to your sides. You can't see if you're watching the video right now, but put your hands to your side, like right beside your thighs, and leave them there. Kind of just like leaving your hand, just putting your hands to your side. Leave them there. Don't feel pressure to move them, because this is one thing that a lot of people do that I don't know the psychology behind it, is that they feel the need to move. It's probably because they're trying to get in a comfortable position, but people feel the pressure or the need to move their hands, to move their body, trying to perform like this great presentation, trying to entertain because they saw it somewhere on YouTube. Oh my God, this great speaker can do crazy hand gestures. I want to be just like them. Sure, you want to be just like them, but you're not them right now. You're not them, and you shouldn't be them. You should take what you like from them and try to put it in your own style. But you can't go from nervous speaker to keynote speaker in the span of a week. That's not realistic. And if you ask any of those great speakers, I'm sure they'll tell you, oh yeah, when they started, they're probably nervous too. They would fidget and stuff like that, but they would train their body to be more comfortable and find a different type of relaxation technique. Because for some individuals, their relaxation techniques, when it comes to their nonverbals during the presentation, is they would sway, they would play with their clothes, they would play with their jewelry, whatever, they're fidgeting, right? But that's not ideal in a speaking context because we can see everything. We can see your hands in your pockets. We can see you swaying side to side. We can see you fiddling with your jewelry, etc. Instead, train yourself to learn good nonverbal habits. And it starts by just literally putting your hands to your side. Can you deliver a great presentation with your hands to your sides? I bet not 80 to 90% of you will say, no, I can't do that. That's strange. Like, why would I put my hands to my sides, and why would I leave them there just for 20 minutes? I bet you ask any great speaker, and if I gave them the same challenge, can you deliver a dynamic speech with zero hand gestures, with just your hands to your side? I bet you 80 to 90 to 100% of them will say, of course I can fucking do that shit, because I don't rely on hand gestures. Hand gestures is not my speech. Hand gestures are not my message. Hand gestures and nonverbal communications help accentuate your presentation, or help accent, or it can help elevate your presentation, but it's not the crutch of it. Your message, your words, your language, the way you deliver that's the beauty and the beef of your presentation. Now, when it comes to beginners, which I'm assuming that you all are, hopefully you stayed till the end of this particular lesson because this one's extremely valuable. Focus on your delivery. Focus on your verbal delivery. And while you're focusing on your delivery, focus on doing less hand gestures, doing less walking. Can you just stand up straight and deliver a beautiful, captivating, informative, persuasive, entertaining speech? Because again, that's the core of communication. It's those verbs. It's a message that you drafted. You're using a channel, which is your verbal delivery, and you're sending it to somebody. Can you just do that? And if you can just deliver a great speech without any hand gestures or body language being visible, your presentation is on its way to be spectacular. And that's why a lot of people listen to podcasts. Think about it. When you listen to podcasts, do you need to see the individual? Do you need to see their nonverbal behaviors? No. But are you still entertained? Are you still enlightened? Are you still persuaded and informed? Yes. Because the message is what matters the most. Okay. So those were 8 bad habits that ruin great presentations from the writer Jeffrey James. So shout out to you, Jeffrey. This was a fun little article. I'm happy I reviewed it, and hopefully listeners or viewers on YouTube, whomever it is, hopefully you liked it. If you did like this lesson, please, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're on my podcast, please rate it. Give me some good reviews and stuff like that. I want to hopefully get more audience members, help everyone's communications skills improve. Obviously, that's my goal. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Okay. And if you have any lesson ideas, email me too. Because obviously the whole purpose of this podcast, as well as my YouTube and my social media platforms, is just to share any information and tips that I have to help you as the viewer, right? As maybe you're introverted and you want some just basic everyday skills to communicate with your colleagues. Maybe you want presentation skills. The more questions that I receive from you, the better I can help you out. Right? Because I want feedback. I need feedback. Because oftentimes I'm just kind of freestyling videos and hoping that they help you. But what would help me better is if I get questions from you so I can answer them through these lessons. Okay. But until next time, take care, everyone. This concludes our lesson for today. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at prof.brianhy@gmail.com. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day.